Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike, and I'm coming at you with another video. This time I'm going to talk to you about the PSP and why I like it more than the DS. So, title of the video is something along the lines of before the Vita or the Nintendo Switch, there was the PSP. And I really got to say that the PSP was a whole new generation of game system, and I've got quite a few. I collect them. I've been collecting all along. I never stopped. I paused. I never stopped. I wanted every version. I don't have the green one yet. Well, the green one's the only one I want. I'm not going to spend, and I don't spend a lot of money on these things. So PSP right now is cheap. You can pick one up for a garage sale, $5 or something. I've done half these were $5 a garage sale. Just so you know, I've got a lot of people pushing back on why do you have so many systems. Well, I have a lot of systems. It is what it is. So before any Nintendo fanboys jump on this bandwagon and tell me why DS is better than PSP, outsold and all this stuff, let me show you something. I've called myself a Sony fanboy, but I'm also just a portable game nut. Now, I may only have 4 PS4s in the house, but I have a ton of games systems. I've got first, second generation DS Lites, all the different colors and all that fun stuff, and I don't pay full retail value for them. I buy them wherever I can as cheap as I can. So no, I don't hate the DS, which is kind of in my last videos. I guess I wasn't clear. I don't hate the DS. I just like the PSP more. So I kind of want to flash back to the days of the launch of the original DS. It's brochure from 2004, coming holiday 2004. Some more brochures, some interesting stuff here. Like, I have a ton of brochures. If that interests people, I could pull out, I got about 13 or 14, and I got some that are like actual like Game Boy Advance SP brochures, stuff that really interests me. I just held on to it for my own personal reasons. So you really can't talk about the PSP instead of talking about the competition. I'm gonna do it first. The DS to me I thought it was a bad idea. Now, it outsold the PSP. PSP sold like 88 million. This sold like 134 million in all of its different iterations. But the one thing that the DS had going for it was the fact that it was fully backwards compatible with all of the games. For the Game Boy Advance, but you couldn't go into Game Boy Color, the original Game Boy. So. And really, this had a non-updatable firmware, which I liked. I liked the fact that every single game is going to work on it. They have to make it work on it. You don't have to mess with upgrading your firmware and all that stuff, which is one of the downsides of the PSP. So anyway, I looked at this for $200, and I said, nah, I don't want to get that. And I opted for the $249.99 option to get a PSP. And I put this on the back burner. I ended up getting my first DS from one of those complete 6 offers online, and you get a free prize, and it actually worked. And I didn't know if it was going to work, but I completed the 6 offers. It cost me like a total of $7 in the end to get my first DS, and it was worth it. So the first thing I want to say about the PSP was that it was a technological revolution when it came to handheld gaming. So you're starting with a Game Boy Advance, original Game Boy, moving into the Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color, and all that stuff. And I had all those, and I had the Game Boy Advance SP, and I had all that stuff. And I'm like I really wanted the original Game Boy Advance styling, and not the Game Boy Advance SP flip type system. And so, getting into that, I have one of these that's already on. You can do so much more with this PSP. It is an entire entertainment system. So there's no videos on here. But you can play games, look at photos. I don't know if I have any on here. There are none. You can listen to music, which is a big deal back. Actually, this is PSP came out right around the time the iPhone did. And so I'm like, why do I need an iPhone? My PSP does all that. But then it gets into the whole debate on gaming on your phone versus gaming on a dedicated gaming device. And I would never want to game on my phone, ever. I actually downloaded games and try to make it work, and I just do not like touchscreen responsiveness. I don't even want to put an add-on to it, so I got to carry a giant add-on piece for my phone so it can play it like a real system. So I think that there's a reason for handhelds in the market forever. I don't ever see a cell phone taking the spot, although a lot of people disagree with me on that. I don't agree with that. Next thing I want to talk to you about is the sheer processing power of this guy. The PSP can just do amazing things. When it came out, it was like a PS3 in your hands. It's really hard to play on here, but anyway, the PSP was seriously a beast. It was definitely a beast, and it had a lot of power behind it. You could play games like Burnout, God of War, Twisted Metal was an amazing game on it. Star Wars Battlefront 2, which was more of a PS2 game, and there's some debate on whether how powerful it was. Like, was it powerful enough to play PS3 games? No. Was it more powerful than PS2? Yes. And you could just scale down the PS3 games, and it worked pretty well. So in the very first release, it included this sample disc, and I thought it was pretty cool. It was really just a video disc, and it had some music videos, and it had game demos and movies on it, like movie clips on it, so you could see what all it could do. And it was like, that was really exciting. I mean, this disc is kind of, most people think it just sucks because it's a sampler disc, but I just thought it was really cool because it showed the capabilities so well, so fast out of the gate. So next thing I want to discuss is the different models. There were 4 different models. 5 if you want to count the European E1000 release, but what was released in the US was only 4 different models. And this is actually, oddly enough, talking about US release, this is a Japanese 1000 model release. And those little pieces right there are actually, it's really cool because you could put them in a charging dock. And you didn't have to line up anything with this. They made charging docks for 2000s, but this was simply set and plug and play. This is my favorite charging dock, and you just set it on there, and those 2 pins make a connection and it charges, and you just plug your charger into the charging dock. It didn't come with a power supply or anything, but this is the one I like the most. It's a Joy Tech. I can't find another one. I was going to get like a handful of them just so I can have all of them sitting upright and a better way to display it, but I didn't. So, and there was 3 different charging docks for the 1000. This one was an Intech here, and it has a little LED on this one. That LED comes and goes. This one here did not have any LED on it, and this is a Dream Gear. And then, of course, the one I like the most now, this whole front panel here, these 2 lights, they light up blue, and I thought that was pretty cool. So moving on to the 2000. Now, the differences between the 1000 and 2000 are somewhat gigantic. The weight, this thing is so much heavier. You don't have the 2-prong charging ability with the 2000 because they made it slimmer and they wanted to take stuff out. With the 2000 it brought, you could have an output. So before there was no real output on a 1000. Yeah, I guess there was. But I think they made some sort of a cable that made it output to a component, which was pretty cool. And then instead of having this trigger to release it, you just pop it open. And this mechanism was way too complex, and why I really didn't like the UMD format. So I mean, I love the PSP and I hated the UMD format. And so I'll come clean here. Out of the 100 or so games that I have, I only played about 6 or 7 of them with the disc. I've had to find an alternate way, and I'm sure you can figure that out online, an alternate way to play all your games without using the disc and without having to buy them brand new again. So the 3000 model, though, is just an improvement from the 2000 model. It has a better, brighter screen. The downside is that you can see some scan lines on it. And so the biggest difference to tell the difference between the 2000 and 3000, because they're so similar, is, well, A, they have a more curved edge. And then the smaller, thinner ring around the PSP. Now that ring is real thin versus the fat 2000. 3000, 2000, 3000. And so with those 3 iterations, I say that the 1000 seems to be a beast, and it just seems to work a lot longer. But the batteries are harder to come by and harder to come by. And then the 2000 model is my favorite of the 3, simply because of the dependability of it. And if you want to mod it, you can mod it you can do a permanent mod to it instead of these temporary mods that you have to do if you use the 3000. And the scan lines can be a bigger issue on the 3000, but I think the screen is beautiful on this, but of course nowhere near as good as a Vita. Next, I will talk about the PSP Go, and it was a revolutionary kind of idea. But I was not a supporter of this thing when it came out. I bought all mine used, and actually I got most of mine for $20 or less, between $10 and $20. I have 4 of them, but I got them at garage sales. I got them at pawn shops, mostly pawn shops. I think one at a garage sale. But this thing here is pretty cool. I like it. Now, I appreciate it now. Now that there's ability to play your games on here, because before you got this UMD format, which we're going to talk a little more about here in a minute, but this UMD format isn't going to fit in here. And they just wanted to make it more portable. Now, this is around the same time they were talking about the partnership with Sony and Ericsson to make a cell phone / PSP, a PSP cell phone. Now they made one or something, and I think they sold like 100 of them. I don't know how many they made of that. I don't have my hands on one. I'd love to have one, but I don't. Now, before we get into talking about the games, which is a big part of the system, I also want to talk about the specialty hardware, the systems. So obviously Japan got a lot of colors that we didn't. In the 1000 model had a whole lot more colors. All we got was black and white in the 1000 model. We didn't start getting a whole variety of colors after the 2000 model. And I don't really know why that is. That's just the way it always seems to be. But I'm going to talk about what my favorite, that's not it, doesn't have the right battery cover, is my Star Wars Edition one. The Star Wars Edition one has Darth Vader on there. And I got my son has one. It's got the Darth Vader on it too. And so the thing is that that's like a really cool special edition. It came with Star Wars Battlefront 2, I think, and it's just a whole lot of fun to play those games like that. So I really think that the specialty edition ones that brought us the colors were great. I'm glad that we actually finally got some colors. Now we got a God of War, a special edition God of War one here. It's red. I still have the sticker on the pawn shop. I bought this one. This is my second one. I actually have another one over here. This is the first one that I got, and although I got a lot of fingerprints on it, the screen's in immaculate condition. Ring not so much, but I pick these things up along the way, and I get them, cheaper. If I get them cheap, I like to keep them. And so those are my two favorites. And then of course you've got this. That is it. This is the 2000 model. And this is the Madden edition, blue. Now I just wanted it because it was blue. I didn't ever play Madden, and when I bought it used. This is the first one I got, and this one was in rough shape. The battery door doesn't stay shut; it's broken, and it doesn't read discs. And I just had to use it to play digital-only games, and I had to finagle it, and it took me a long time, like 3 days of trying to get it to work. Finally figured out with forums and stuff how to get it to work because it had an error on it. But anyway, that's just one of the fun things about collecting along the way. You want something, you don't want to pay a whole lot of money, you make a little sacrifice. Now I got this one here which functions perfect and is in way better shape. And of course, I couldn't turn it down for the price I got this one. So, and which now is starting to fade because I've been doing this for, 13 years of collecting PSPs? So now I want to talk to you about games, and these kind of got out of order as I brought them down here. I kind of had them in an order of like kinds together, try to kind of group genres and stuff, but they kind of got out of order. So anyway, here's the Cydia game. They've God Eater. These are similar types of games. It's actually not quite exactly the same. Twisted Metal. Okay, Twisted Metal, and this was one of my first two games. I got this one, and I got the Untold Legends. Now I gotta say, Twisted Metal, I'd never played the series before. Head On is probably my favorite in the series, and I can tell you that I played that game over and over and over and over and over, and playing it over and over and over. Maybe that's why I like it so much. But that one and then the Untold Legends, those are my I'm fond of those, I guess you could say. They're not the best games, but I really like them. Need for Speed Underground, that's something that was on the PS2. Got a sports game. Ridge Racer, I don't spend much time on this because the Burnout series has spoiled me. Burnout is so much more fun than just a straight racing game. MVP, whatever. Coded Arms. Coded Arms was an interesting shooter, but I didn't get too deep into it. I played it a bit, and I thought it was okay. I really like the beautiful display and the graphics on it, though. This is a little dual pack of Ratchet & Clank sealed. I've got the games in like loose versions over here somewhere. So when I found that for a real deal locally, I got it. Wipeout Pure. Wipeout was a whole lot of fun. I played a lot of Wipeout, and I've also got 2 copies of Wipeout. And I get them at garage sales for $1, so don't think I'm over here spending $1 million. So most of my PSP games that I've got here are, I just can't pass on them. I haven't played that one yet actually at all. Reflex. This one actually probably be good for my son because he's into motorcycles right now, as you can see with some of our other videos. I had to go out and get the G.I. Joe game, and I don't think it was a bad game. I don't think it was a great game, and it's different than the PS3 version. It's more the PS2 version, and this is one of the times that PSP was on par with PS2, and I'll tell you the Star Wars Battlefront one. Got me a Star Wars, Lego Star Wars 3. Death Jr. was fun. It was just so different, and I just felt like I was playing a kiddie game, but then again, it was kind of fun. I'm not a huge fan of Grand Theft Auto series, so I'll just put that out there. I played it a little bit, and I was like, not too big into it, and I sure hope my kids don't get into it, because it's just not the best game they could play, right? So, God of War. Okay, so Chains of Olympus, great game. And then there's the other one, I think I only have it loose. Spirits of... I actually forgot the name of it. I haven't played it in so long. Anyway, it's a spirit of something or another. But anyway, these God of War games are the bomb. They're the best. There's my second copy of Twisted Metal. I need to put it back in there with it. Star Wars Force Unleashed. This game was more of the PS2 version, and I played it over and over and over and over and over and over and over on my PSP. When I finally, 3 years later, got a PS3 because I just couldn't stand it anymore because I just loved my PSP so much. And at that time, I think I had 5 PSPs in 2009, and I went ahead and opted for the backwards compatible PS3. I had this game for the PS3 for about 6 months before I actually bought the system. Does that make sense to anybody? Well, it should, because I got it at Blockbuster on clearance for $12, and at the time was a really good deal. Star Wars Lethal Assault. Now, you know what? I played through this one, and it's just not as good. As they make these different Star Wars Battlefronts and different versions that are like Star Wars Battlefront on the PS2, they just got less interesting and less enjoyable. I'm going to show you the loose version since I don't have the box versions of these games. So I've got this one's called Renegade Squadron, and there's another one, I have it too, another sort of squadron game that there's just so many of the Star Wars games on PSP, and I loved it. I loved that. Clone Wars, Republic Heroes, just it was an alright game. This game was probably a C game, rated a 5 out of 10 or a 3 out of 5. But they had some Easter eggs in it for us toy collectors out there, and they put in G1 characters. The game itself is very clumsy and hard to play, but to actually just be able to transform on screen and have a real Transformers game that's not just a clone of a 2D side-scroller, that's pretty cool. Megamind, not the greatest game in the world, but it's there. Pixar's Up. There's the Daxter that I played a lot. I played a lot of this Daxter. I guess I got 3 copies of Wipeout Pure. Let me group those together. Luminous. Luminous, fun puzzle game, not as good as Tetris. God of War. Ghosts and Goblins. Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins. This was a good game. I really enjoyed this. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it and play the heck out of it. Really, 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 really hard. Which means that when you get good at it, you can beat it in like 4 or 5 hours. Okay, this is I don't know, Naruto. Lord of Arcana. I mean, it's not my kind of game. I don't even think I played it yet. This one here, I can't pronounce it. I didn't play it yet. I'm going to leave that to the end there. Okay, SOCOM US Navy SEAL. Now, this was kind of fun, but this is where you really saw the hardware starting to lack ability. We play those kind of games. Phantasy Star Online Portable, I just really didn't get into that so much. Killzone Liberation, this was a top-down third-person shooter. I think you can see it from the pictures. And that, in my mind, is what Killzone is. I'm wrong, I'm sure. Everybody can tell me in there. Hot Shots Golf, they've put that on every system. I have 2 copies of this. This isn't the best game in the world, but at the time, starved for content, it was one of the better launch titles. So, Tigers, I'm not really at all into any sort of sports games. Sorry. Pursuit Force is an interesting game. It was kind of fun. Another sports game. Another Untold Legends. Another Untold Legends game with the. Can you find these at PSP games at GameStop? Man, how long has it been? 5, 6, 7 years? Another Grand Theft Auto. I guess I need to group those together. Another one of that game. 50 Cent, Bulletproof. Another one of that game. Another one of that game. Okay, now we're going to move into the movies. Now, I'm not a fan of movies on the system. Dogma, I guess, whatever. Paying a premium Harry Potter, I don't know, maybe someone out there wants that. This game, this movie's not too much fun. It's funny, like one go around, I wouldn't watch it. Wouldn't have it on my system. Open season, that's all right, Pixar. And then, is this the game or the movie? The 300. I think it's the game. So, just going through there's lots of fun games and movies. I'm not really big on the movies. Lastly, I want to talk to you about the downside of the PSP. The downside of the PSP is, well, there's a few things. Number one is the UMD format itself. Now, at the time, memory was so expensive, and Sony still thinks memory is expensive with their own proprietary formats, but still, memory was so expensive that this disc could hold like the 1.8 gigs of memory. That's quite a bit to hold on this little disc, and for the size and form factor of it. And so with that, versus like a 2 gig stick was costing $60 or $70 is what they were selling them for in the stores. So think about how technology's come now. Obviously, putting it on cards is a lot easier, and you're putting 32 gig cards out of games. 32 gig games are coming out on cards now, and it's costing the same, if not less, than this. And you don't have the problems with all the mechanisms to spin the disc and to read the disc and lasers going out and all that stuff. You just have to make sure the contacts match up. So this UMD format was a problem. Another thing is the storage. How do you store your UMDs on the go? I mean, there's another Grand Theft Auto, Chinatown. That's a different one. But storing them on the go and keeping them protected there's a couple different options. You got something like this that you can put your games in, and then you can store them, you pull your game out, whatever. I was not a fan of this. I early on tried to figure out a way to not have to carry a UMD disc with me and not burn my laser out. I have not burned out a laser in any of mine. Now, I've bought some that have the lasers burned out and planned on using them for parts for other ones, and that's why some of these are non-working models. Well, they all work, they just don't play the games. Other things would be like this case here. Now, they could make a 16 case or something like that, one longer, maybe one that holds 8 or something, and that would be an option. But downside of the UMD is that it was just a bad format, poorly received. Then some people, and I get these where they have been slightly opened, people think they have to take them out. And then they realize, why doesn't it work? They don't understand. And it just happens. The other problem is the battery. So, number one, batteries fail. My very first PSP, I had it on that charging dock 24/7. And basically the way the charging dock, or the PSP works is it drops to a certain charge, like 95%, it starts charging. So basically I only had a 5% charge left on it after doing that for 3 years. So I had to get a new battery for it. I stopped putting it on the charging dock. I drained it all the way down and charged it all the way back up. And that's how you should do all of these, including lithium-ion batteries, because the batteries have some sort of a memory inside of them. Also, there's a flood of these Chinese fakes that are terrible batteries. They blow up in your system. They don't stop charging. They overheat. They do a lot of things. But the worst thing, I would say, is the fact they just don't work right. They don't take the charge. They don't last very long. You've wasted your money. You may get one run out of it. And that's another. Some of them, you only get one run. You can't recharge them. So official batteries are like $15. When you think about it, you're buying a system for like $30 and you buy a handful of games, whatever. You got to buy another battery for $15, and it's just kind of ridiculous in my opinion. Especially if as many as I have, what am I going to do to resupply these batteries? That's a problem that I deal with. I probably Half of these need new batteries, whether they don't have one, or the battery went bad, or I'm constantly looking for batteries. I'm constantly looking for official batteries that I can just charge, see if they work, and all that stuff. But anyway, I love the PSP. It's paved the way for the Vita and the Switch. And Tigerium Hanger out.